So we have Kelly Smith. She'll be presenting about Condition Monitoring Observer Reports, CMOR, Help the CMOR Drought. Kelly Smith was one of the original employees of the National Drought Mitigation Center when it was established in 1995 and helped the center establish a web presence back when the web was new. She took a 6-year break to finish a degree in community and regional planning and to work with African immigrants and refugees on behalf of various faith-based and nonprofit organizations, and has been back at the Drought Center since 2006. She focuses on understanding how drought affects people and the environment. She is interested in both qualitative and quantitative information, how our stories and our science can work together. Condition Monitoring Observer Reporting, CMOR, is part of a toolkit at droughtImpacts.unl.edu.
Okay, thanks very much. What you're seeing right now on the left is the U.S. Drought Monitor map, and on the right is the, the current dashboard for CMOR reports. Every dot that you see on the map at the right is because someone has entered a report for that place to let us know how they are experiencing drought, how dry or wet it is. The color of the dot has to do with how dry or wet it is. And then they've checked off different impact categories that we'll talk about. And the reason I'm showing these two maps side by side is that the CMOR reporting system is kind of a way to provide ground truth to the U.S. Drought Monitor process. The state climatologists and state drought assessment teams who provide input to the U.S. Drought Monitor map makers do look at the CMOR reports and other sources of information to understand how drought is affecting people. So if you feel like the U.S. Drought Monitor map is not adequately reflecting your conditions, or if you just kind of want to be part of that conversation, you can begin submitting reports or observations to it. And that way, if you submit observations over time, it's ideal because people kind of get to know you and sort of start to see things through your eyes over time. But we'll talk more about that. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. So the U.S. Drought Monitor, now what you're seeing is both of those same maps zoomed in. The U.S. Drought Monitor does provide a map view and statistics for several different tribal nations, including the Navajo Nation. And here is what the year-to-date dashboard for the CMOR reports looks like, zoomed into the Four Corners region. And you can see we don't have a whole lot of reporting in Utah. We've got some from southern Arizona, a little bit more from New Mexico and Colorado, but there's certainly some opportunity there to put more dots on the map if you would like people to see what conditions are like in your part of the country. So just a little bit, this is the most abstract thing I'll show you. And after this, I think it'll get easier to follow. The U.S. Drought Monitor map is made by a group of 11 different map makers. They take turns, one per week. They take about 2-week shifts because it's pretty intense, and then they're really tired at the end of that 2 weeks. So the U.S. Drought Monitor authors are a rotating team. For each state, they work with kind of an assessment team. That could be a state climatologist, it could be a team of people from different agencies, and usually that assessment team will have contacts with different tribal nations that are within their area, or different stakeholder groups. So different ways to kind of put the feelers out into the state or the region and find out how drought is affecting people. And one of the ways that some states have chosen to gather information is through CMOR reports. And they may be doing outreach through extension to different farmers and ranchers, to water suppliers, homeowners. It could be someone who's managing a nature preserve or some kind of other resource. Various kinds of field workers, people who are out and about, and just sometimes, people like me, I'll take a bike ride and take a picture while I'm there and sometimes send it. So you're outdoor enthusiasts. And then all of those reports, I'll show you how to do it in a minute. They get kind of funneled into this CMOR system, where they immediately go onto a map and the dashboard. And then they're there for a state climatologist and the drought assessment team to look at. A drought monitor authors can also look at them, but they tend to prefer it. They usually look at it, the information gets kind of aggregated along with climate data and other information. They hardly ever just look at the CMOR reports, but they'll say, well, the CMOR reports said it was dry here, and we found a 6-month standardized precipitation index map that really validates that information, and the soil moisture is looking bad. So they kind of assemble a whole case. And CMOR reports might be one type of evidence that they would use if they're recommending a change in the map. So the way to get started using CMOR, it's actually, it's based on Esri technology. The survey is something called Survey 123. It's a form that's part of the Esri system. And it's actually pretty easy, pretty seamless. And that's the reason why we chose this approach. You don't have to register ahead of time. You don't have to have an account. If you are watching this on a computer and you have a landscape photo on your computer that you want to submit, you can probably do it right now while we're talking. You can go to the landing page is go.unl.edu/CMOR_drought. And from there, you could click on submit a report, and then I will walk you through what you would see, and you would just upload it right from your computer. Or the other thing you can do is use it on a mobile app. So to do that, you go, I'll give you more information about that. That's also actually pretty seamless. And we do, if you go to the landing page, we do have, that's also where you can get to the dashboard showing all the reports that have been submitted. You can get to an archive of all the past reports. From the dashboard default view is year to date, but it goes back to 2018. And then we also have some fact sheets and videos that will help you get going on that. And I'm sorry, I need to update this screen capture. We have the fact sheet in Spanish as well, if that would be of interest to anyone. So as I said, it works from a computer or a mobile device. If you were to scan this barcode with or this QR code with your phone, it would prompt you to download the Survey 123 field app. And you would just go to the App Store and download that app. Then the next time you come back and scan the barcode, it will prompt you to download the survey. And you would tell it, let me see if I've got red boxes here, to continue without signing in. You do not need an account. You tell it to continue without signing in. And then if you would like it to be able to pinpoint your location, choose allow while using app when it asks you about your location. That gets you really close to where you are. I mean, within a meter or two, it's just spot on. So sometimes people might not want to be that accurate. And I can tell you in a minute some ways around that too. And then after that, you would go back and download the survey into the app. And so it sounds complicated, but just the first time it takes a little bit of attention. After that, it's really fast. Then once you pull up the survey, this is what it looks like. These are screen captures from my phone. It asks you to pick a language currently available. It's available in English or in Spanish. Then there's a way to a location widget. There are a lot of different ways that you can enter your location. If you're actually doing this on your phone, it will automatically be entered unless you've told it not to allow your location. If you're doing this from a browser and you're not using a VPN, you can click this little compass icon and it will pinpoint your location. If you are using a VPN, like I'm sitting in Nebraska right now, it will show that I'm in Dallas or something like that. So the other way to do it is just type in, I'm in Lincoln, Nebraska. And then it will put a point on the map in the middle of the city, which is close enough. And that's also how you could do it. If you don't want to pinpoint the exact location of your property, you can give it the county name or the nearest city, and that will be close enough for these purposes. Then there's a location quality control step where we ask people to select their state and county. And that is because occasionally there is an error in the widget in the location widget. And this is, this won't put the marker in the correct spot, but when we go through and double check, if we see the markers way out in the middle of the ocean, we can at least get it to the right county. The default date is the current date. And if you've taken a photo from a few days ago or a few weeks ago and you want to upload that, then you can use the calendar to pick a different date. Then there's this 7-point dry to wet scale. And this is what determines the color of the dot on the map. And this is the same scale that CocoRa's uses. If you've probably heard of CocoRa's Citizen Science Monitoring Network. Our program CMOR is kind of like a cousin or a younger sibling to CocoRa's. They sort of grew up as part of the same efforts, and they've got some similarities and some differences. And I think they're actually very complementary. But the 7-point scale is also used by CocoRa's. So it's a way to put the two different kinds of reports on the same map, which is helpful when we're trying to cross-validate things. Then there's a question that relates to, it asks you how many times you've seen it like this and how long you've been in the area. And that is so that we can start to say things like, this is a 1 in 5 year observation, or a 1 in 20 year observation. And that kind of starts to put it in the same percentile terms as what the drought monitor uses. We're not currently mapping or displaying this information because we're waiting until we have more, but it's potentially a really interesting way to look at things. Then we start to, there are a number of different sections of the report that you can expand or not. It's actually pretty easy to skip over big chunks of questions. One of the new blocks that we added this year is the option for people to report what they're seeing in normal or wet conditions. And that's because we really don't want people to only report in drought. We would like to know what things look like in a normal year or in a wet year, because then it gives us a really good basis of comparison for when it is a dry year. So some of the normal or wet things you might see would be, deeper puddles, more water in ditches, things are greener than usual, groundwater well levels are higher. You don't have to water your lawns or gardens. A variety of things. I'm not sure any of these examples are really great for Arizona and New Mexico or the Four Corners region, not that I'm thinking about that, but there's always kind of an other option, and you can fill in what you might be seeing. So this is the all of the different sectors to choose from: crop production, livestock, municipal water supply, community hydropower, health, household, recreation or tourism, other business or industry, fire, forest, wildlife, freshwater fish, spawning fish. So then if I open up, if I click on this little expansion icon and open up the crop production impacts, this is just the top of a list asking people what they might be seeing or experiencing. Things like less water for irrigation, reduced yield, insect infestation, crop disease, plant stress. You would just put a check or an X in any of these boxes that are an impact that you've experienced. And then down at the bottom, there's always an other option, and other will open up this free text box that you can type in whatever you've been seeing or experiencing if it's not something that we had on the list. Then it also goes into the same kind of crop production system that the Farm Service Agency uses, the USDA uses, asking you to rate conditions from very poor to excellent. And then later we can map that separately. And then there's also a planting status question. Are things happening at a normal time of year, earlier than normal, later than normal, and same for harvest status. Then for range conditions, if someone wants to report on range conditions, first there are all of these individual impacts like feeding hay early, more invasive species, decreased stock weights, and things related to animal health. And then there are also the questions about range conditions, ranging also from very poor to excellent, similar to the crop condition questions. Then we have, you can upload photos, up to 5 photos. We also, at the request of some of our partners, we strengthened the language on copyright. And what it says is that you, as the photographer, actually retain the copyright, although you are granting us permission to use it for nonprofit education and management and assessment uses. Also, our state partners and others involved in assessing drought, like the Arizona drought assessment team, the New Mexico drought assessment team, they would also be able to see the photos and use the photos. We use them for things in our, some of our publications where we're looking for things that are interesting or informative. Photos are worth 1,000 words, as they say. So we do use them for educational purposes, but they also appear on the maps. And that's the main thing, is that they become part of this permanent record of what conditions look like at a given place and time. And this is a great place to provide more information in the caption. Like you might say, this creek is much smaller than it normally is this time of year, or this field is brown and it's normally green at this time of year. And sometimes people even upload a before and after photo showing us a good year compared with the current dry year. And that's also super helpful information. And when I say that's helpful, that's the kind of information that Drought Monitor authors have told us that they find particularly valuable. Something else we have implemented this year that is, it's working, is kind of a display name. So first we ask people to choose their role. Are they extension, a farmer or rancher, water supplier, outdoor enthusiast, that same list of different kinds of people that we mentioned before. Just how are you involved? In what capacity are you involved with drought? And then we ask people to choose a display name. And it could be anything, like it could be, I could choose Kelly Smith in Lincoln, Nebraska. That would be pretty direct about who I am. Or I could say Happy Lady in Nebraska if I want to be less direct, or just something completely made up that doesn't have to do with Nebraska or anything else. There'll be a location involved. And we're seeing people use that a lot, like the name of their farm or the name of their business. Sometimes it's an individual, sometimes it is kind of a made up name. But what that lets us do then is, over time, if someone submits more than one report, you can see if it's from the same person or not by seeing. You can actually search by the display name, or you can, if there is more than one report from an area, you can look at each report to see who submitted it. And it's kind of a way of signing it, I guess. And that helps build credibility and makes it more informative for people who are interpreting the data. Then we do collect your name and your email, and we don't publicize that, and we're certainly not selling that information. We do share information with our state partners and other people involved in drought assessment, because we need to know who is saying things sometimes, so that, as a credibility question, we're not really looking for anonymous information. We're just trying to protect people who are sharing information in public. So we don't share this information. I do think that no electronic information is 100% safe. Things everywhere get hacked. Esri, I don't know if they ever get hacked, but I don't think that anyone ever can guarantee that electronic information will not be shared. It's not like it's in a file cabinet and I can say it's locked. But we do everything in our power to protect people's names and emails. So then kind of the fun part is, once you do all that and you hit submit, then you can go find your dot on the map. And so here's one from Henderson, Nevada, submitted from March of 2021. And they did do a nice example here of a before and after photo. The before photo, or the wet year, is the one with the nice colorful vegetation along the road, and the dry year is the one where things are looking browner, quite a bit drier. And they describe the difference for us in the caption. So the default view of the CMOR dashboard is year to date. You can read their reports and see photos in this panel at the right. And it's got these little advance left and right arrows. If I just were to just click on the right arrow, it would scroll through all of the reports. You can see there are whatever day it was that I downloaded this, I think about a month ago, there are almost 400 reports. So if I would just click on that arrow, it would scroll through all 400 of the reports. And down at the bottom is a timeline showing the frequency of when reports come in, or the pattern in time. And I think that this kind of weekly pattern that we're starting to see is that's North Dakota Extension. They are really good about submitting reports every Monday. They got kind of spun up doing that last year as they were going into a bad drought year. The state climatologist worked with a network. It was already a well-established network of range specialists through Extension. And we did a presentation for them on how CMOR worked, and they got going on the mobile app, excuse me. And they've been really consistent. So I love these little weekly spikes that you can see because of the North Dakota effort. So this is what it looks like zoomed into Colorado. When I select a state over here, it zooms into that state. And so of course the number of individual reports is fewer, but the timeline also zooms into the area that is selected. Then if we go to the detail map for year to date, so one of the advantages, I'm going to go back one click. One of the advantages of the dashboard is that it lets you do these really quick and powerful filtering. You can go down to just reports with photos. You can select reports by how dry or wet it is, of course, by state and county. But then if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty detail, you want to go to the year-to-date detail year-to-date tab. And by default, the view of this has, the first view of it has the legend on, and you can click that off, but that's showing us the CMOR reports, you know, what the colors mean, and the US Drought Monitor colors. Then if you want to filter by sector and just see reports that have included information about a certain sector, you click on this icon, this kind of 4 square thing, and it will take you down to normal or wet conditions, crop or range conditions, planting harvest status, and then the individual sectors, crop production, livestock production, household, fire, forestry, all those different things are, you can open them up separately. So here, if I've chosen crop and range conditions, it then opens this entire selection box that lets me pick which ones I want to see. So here I have chosen these filters for range conditions showing poor and very poor pastures. And so all of the reports you're seeing now are ones where they've checked off poor or very poor pasture conditions. And then you can find past years one at a time on separate tabs. And the reason we do that is that we've let the survey questions evolve over the years in response to what questions people want to answer, and also what questions people at the state assessment teams, what questions they think are valuable. So it just takes some trial and error, basically. And so the detail is a little bit different year to year, and that's why we have these separate maps for each year. The US Drought Monitor, you can control the, it's tricky because the US Drought Monitor is, you don't want to show more than 1 week at a time. So one of the layers is US Drought Monitor Archive. And you want to be really sure that you're only viewing 1 week at a time, or it defaults to the most recent week. This time slider thing at the bottom can expand, and if you expand it too far, the Drought Monitor Archive will look really messy. So the cool thing though is if you click on the, you activate the Drought Monitor Archive layer, and then you click on this time slider to bring up its, the play button, basically, it will animate it for you. It will show you the US Drought Monitor maps over time. And also you can see the reports kind of come and go over time, along with the map changing. So that's kind of a fun feature to experiment with. Yeah, and as I mentioned, you can view reports by any past year, and the details have changed from year to year. They're specific. A few of the details are specific to certain surveys. But this date filter will let you, it's a pretty powerful filter. You can do a lot of things by selecting different date ranges. And then you can use there's a funnel icon that takes you to some filters very quickly that were also on the dashboard layer, the state or county, how dry or wet is it, and the photos layer. The sector icon, as I mentioned, brings up a whole list of sectors that you can look at. And the default view of a sector is everything is on, but then so right now, this is all of the reports that have mentioned public and community health. And this is what it looks like if I say, I just want to see within public and community health reports that have mentioned air quality issues such as dust or pollen. So you can see there are fewer of those, but that takes you down to a really nice, specific, detailed layer. And then this wrench icon, you can write a custom query. Like here, I've said, I want to see any reports from this year that use the word wheat. And that's what is showing us, these few dots here. That's probably about the winter wheat crop that was not very good earlier this year. So that's another really powerful tool. And then down at the bottom is this little bitty handle. You got to know it's there, but that opens up the attribute table, which is a way to do more custom filters and custom queries. And one of the options here under options is export to CSV. So it lets you export the reports, everything but the name and email. And that's what I've got. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
You can raise your hand to unmute yourself as well to ask your question. So Kelly, when did this CMOR tool come about?
When did it come about?
Yeah.
We started using it in 2018. And before that, we had a tool called the Drought Impact Reporter that had a submit a report button, and people didn't use it a whole lot. They used it a little bit, but not a whole lot. And I think they just like this technology better. So we got our feet wet in 2018. And by the end of 2018, we just replaced the submit a report button with CMOR reports. Just go back through in case there's a more thought-provoking layer.
We also have a poll survey, so if you can do that during this time as well, appreciate it. Okay, we have a question in the chat. It says, thank you for the information. It is very helpful and useful to me. Do you have any recommendations on how we as extension agents can encourage our constituents to submit reports? Can we submit for them?
You can definitely submit reports for them. That is a lot of what North Dakota is doing, and it's been pretty successful. So yes, if you're willing to do that, we definitely see that. People have done that in Georgia also. And that can be, it might even be something that extension can kind of start. You can sort of like prime the pump by, as you're talking to people, be collecting information, be entering that. And then if anyone says, hey, can I do that? You say, oh, sure, here's how you do it. Or you can offer to show them how to do it, as you're meeting with them. So I would say, in some states where they, especially when drought comes up really quickly, like in Georgia, I know the state climatologist office was just getting a ton of calls, and they said, you know what, send them, please go fill out this CMOR report, because one of the advantages of that is the information automatically, it's taken down. It's what we need so that we can compare it to other information, and it appears immediately on the map. So it's much more efficient than someone taking down a message on the phone or even email and then having to get it to the right person, to in front of the right person. This way it just automatically goes right into the system. So, you know, I would say if people are, I don't know if complaining would be the right word, but, you know, expressing concern about the conditions they're seeing, you might just say this CMOR report process is a good way to make that concern, to share that concern in a way that it's likely to be seen. No guarantees that it will be seen or acted on, but it's probably more likely than anything else, I would say. Yeah, and I'm, you know, if you have a group of people who are gathered, I'm happy. I make these presentations a lot, and I have a shorter version if you prefer that. I'm happy to help talk about it. And there's the educational material on the landing page too at go.unl.edu. Here, I'll put that one up, /CMOR Drought at the beginning of the presentation. But yeah, I think it's potentially a really great tool for extension to use. Here we go.
Hello, this is Marge Lantana. I have a question. Thank you for the report. It is very useful material to utilize. And I have been in contact with our Navajo Nation to do more, the assessment on the Navajo Nation. And I'm just wondering, is Navajo Nation participating in this CMOR?
Are they, or can they?
Are they participating? Well, I guess my question I should ask, is anyone on the Navajo Nation? I seen your map there on the about Navajo Nation. Any of those individual or organization participating in the CMOR?
I haven't seen any that I know are from the Navajo Nation, but what we could do, this is possibly, let me just see if I can pull it up real quick and we can check. You can tell me if there's a what to zoom into.
I would say maybe Fort Defiance. That's their Fort Defiance. Their office is located in Fort Defiance, Arizona.
And what county would that be?
That would be Apache County in Arizona.
Apache County.
Okay.
I think so. I'm not sure, but it's closer to Window Rock, Arizona.
So it's it only shows me the counties where there are reports. So you can see that they're all down in the southeast corner of the state. So far this year, it does not look like there's a lot of participation from the Navajo Nation in CMOR reporting. So lots of opportunity, fresh start.
Yes.
Hi, I logged in late. How do we log on to submit reports?
Helena put the address, the URL right in the chat. It's go.unl.edu/CMOR Drought. And then then you can just go right to the submit a report button and it'll pull up the form.
Okay, and we do this daily
download it.
for our area?
This doesn't like my browser. You could do it daily. I guess we would recommend weekly as the ideal frequency to match the drought monitor map. Even monthly would be great. We do have a couple of observers who are currently doing it weekly. And what they do is submit a photo of the same feature every week, like a stream and a field or something like that. And it's really informative. You can see how it looks across the seasons and in dry and wet conditions. So that's ideal if somebody's got time to do it every week.
Okay. What about like using like a lake for
Using
observation for the
like
picture?
lake level, you mean, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, you sure could. And right now, it kind of depending on how you wanted to do that. If you were just going to describe the lake is smaller than usual, or the lake is lower than usual, or if you're going to actually give a measurement, maybe explain to us, what or is this the elevation or something else that you're doing? Yeah, a lake. Yes, there's a guy in Arizona, Oklahoma, who regularly emails pictures of his favorite fishing hole, and it's pretty informative. I mean, unfortunately, he doesn't always submit it to CMOR, but yeah, that's really good information, actually.
Okay, because I'm from the Navajo reservation as well, in the Ganado area,
Mhm.
and part of the farm board, and one of our farm board members actually keeps maybe like a weekly water level log of the lake in the area.
Oh, yeah,
So I could try to maybe team up with her and see if we can start doing this log for our area.
that'd be really cool.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So Kelly, you mentioned a weekly report. On what day would be a good day to submit a report?
Honestly, any day that is convenient for someone to submit a report is ideal. The U.S. Drought Monitor process really, I usually try to get them, if it's really directed towards the U.S. Drought Monitor process, I would say Mondays, late week or Mondays, because they get all the climate data on Tuesday, and after that it's hard to get them to pay attention to things like photos and descriptions, but they might be scanning a little more broadly up till through Monday. But really, any consistent photo over time or consistent reporting over time is great. So it's probably more important what day works for the person.
Hi, Kelly. I had a question for you. Do you share the reports with USDA to provide for their drought monitoring reports to determine their disaster programs?
It does feed into the U.S. Drought Monitor map process. And the Drought Monitor map triggers assistance under the Livestock Forage Disaster Program. So in that sense, we do provide the reports for the USDA process, but it's part of the whole process of making the U.S. Drought Monitor map. It's one kind of data that they look at. It's definitely, occasionally people have thought that submitting a CMOR report is the same thing as filing for assistance, and it's not. That for that you go to the Farm Service Agency or whoever your local USDA office is. This is more about providing information about drought conditions for the Drought Monitor map, which then triggers relief. I guess I have a question for any of you who might be interested in participating in this, and that is what kind of feedback would you like to be getting? I think right now, if you submit something, you might get an automatic message that says, "Thank you, we got your report." But would you like more than that? If so, what would you like, and how often would you like it?
Kelly, this is Marge Lantana.
Mhm.
A producer, and I'm situated northeast of Crown Point, New Mexico. It's not quite too close to west of New Mexico, but I know we've been using rain gauge to measure our precipitation. But sometimes we get off track. But I always would like to know around me, like how much precipitation is around me, not within only my little pasture. So I'm very interested in knowing, is our precipitation true to the New Mexico drought map? You know, sometimes I look at it and then I thought, oh wow, are we really in extreme drought? Or is this area shows it's an extreme drought, but the forage looks pretty good, you know. So there's a differences, and I would like to participate in the CMOR, but I think I would need some in-depth education to start the report, because I used to take before and after photos, and I have information all the way back from the past 5 years, how the rangeland look. You know, I have range cage, and I used to shoot photos 4 ways, and I see a huge difference to today. Today is a drought. 4 years ago, that place was green. So this Seymour is more interesting. I like to participate.
I would love for you to participate. I would love, well, we have a related tool that you might also be interested in called the Visual Drought Atlas. And that is really a place to build a photographic record over time. It doesn't, if you submit, I'm still sharing my screen, right? You guys are still seeing that?
Yes.
It doesn't ask you as many questions as CMOR, but it allows you to upload photos in the same way. It just wants to know what the land use type is and then upload photos. So it's a shorter questionnaire, and it's really just about the photographic record. And then it shows up on this map with that can be sorted by time. That really, so that's a good way to be able to display different photos over time. I'm just thinking, if you have a photo collection, especially if you have dates and things associated with them, it would be really interesting to find someone to work with you if you were interested on how to have those added to the Visual Drought Atlas, and possibly also to certainly also to see more going forward with any photos that we get. Actually, any CMOR photos we get, we periodically add them to this Visual Drought Atlas too. So it's just different ways for people to look at the same information, or, you know, making the most of the photos that we do get. So yeah, it would be great if we could get you going in adding photos to CMOR, and from there they could go into the Visual Drought Atlas, and maybe we could add your photo archive to the Visual Drought Atlas. I can try to find you know, our various people at the Drought Center will be doing some work in the Southwest over in the coming months and years, and we can sure try to find a way, maybe find a good intern or somebody who could sit down with you and figure out a process if you're interested, because we would love to have the photos that you've described. And I think a lot of people would benefit from that. You know, then it would be a really good dot on the map.
Sounds good. Thank you. And
Yeah,
I just
thanks, Mark.
I'm downloading the app right now.
Oh, fantastic.
I could at least maybe give it a start soon sometimes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Information was very resourceful. Thank you so much.
Oh, great. Thank you.
So we have another question. It
Mhm.
says, how useful would this be in relationship to burn scars after major fires? Has this been looked at?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. I am not a fire expert. I know I personally would learn a lot from looking at that and seeing what that looks like. I would guess that that would be very useful and interesting information.
So our webinars are recorded and they will be posted on the Navajo Sustainable Ag websites along with the Drought Learning Network website. Also our YouTube channels and NSA's Facebook. And here, Kelly also has a watch video as well and some fact sheets that are available.